Hi friends, I'm Unique. Every once in a while, I do some more properly edited Final Fantasy XIV videos, usually about PvP. I've done highlight reels of PvP matches here on the channel. I actually made a guide to help you get immediately better at Frontline. And I just really enjoy the Frontline mode. I enjoy the Frontline mode a lot because you can run it with friends, you can work together against other people, and you can queue up for it regularly, unlike Crystal Conflict. But after spending so much time in the Frontline mode, I have developed a bit of a stigma about how I feel about the jobs, and decided to make this tier list video just in case it'll help others understand why some jobs are better for this PvP mode than others, why some are not as good and are really rough to play if you want to actually be impactful. This Frontline tier list video here is about which jobs do I consider more dangerous to deal with in the Frontline mode. This is not a Crystalline Conflict tier list. Believe me, some of these jobs are immediately way better in Crystalline Conflict, and if you've seen the tournaments in FanFest, like, some of these jobs are really good, but just they don't really meet the mark for me in Frontline, and I don't really consider them as threatening. Also, this video is being recorded before patch 6.51. I really doubt that the meta, the quote-unquote my view of the meta, is going to change that much, because even if they change, so usually for frontline balancing, what they do, people are usually like, they don't never change frontline balancing. Well, they do. They change each job's damage multiplier, like their outgoing damage. They usually change that. And they also changed the job's defense multiplier. For example, in a couple of patches ago, Red Mage and Dancer both actually have to be in melee range, so they got their defense modifier buffed. You know, it makes sense. Whether or not it's enough, who knows? Okay, so we're gonna go immediately to S tier, the number one DPS I consider the most dangerous. Literally, like, if they can build a battle high very quickly, not from instant death, just from raw damage, is Dragoon. Dragoon is incredibly just... They may not have that much defensive capability with their Hard Roar, which is a damage mitigation. It's like a reprisal around them, basically. That's the only really good defense they have, and also they have a skill that lets them run away by backflipping. But most importantly, their... What is it? Wormwind Lance? Something like that? And their limit break? I'm pretty sure most people are very aware of their limit break. Like, Dragoon is raw damage, and it's incredibly dangerous at higher battle high levels. Like, that job does not play around, and you can get squashed like a pancake immediately. If they use their Hard Roar correctly and their backflip skill, they're actually really good at getting away too. Like, if the Dragoon knows what they're doing. I absolutely do not mess around when it comes to higher battle high Dragoons on the front line. Okay, so next on the S tier list is a Dark Knight. This should not be a surprise to anybody. This is probably one of the best enablers, as I heard a friend call it, in the frontline mode. This job immediately makes other jobs better. And I mean, like, a lot of the other jobs. You can name it: Dragoon, Astrologian, Warrior, Black Mage, White Mage, Samurai, Gunbreaker, Scholar, Red Mage, Reaper, Dancer, like, you name it. Like, a lot of these other jobs, even Dark Knights, become immediately better when there's another Dark Knight, because there's just no other job in the game mode right now that is good at grouping up enemies like Dark Knight is. There is, like, no other job with as strong of an engage skill as Dark Knight has. Their Living Dead limit break can do some pretty decent AoE damage too, but, like, that Salted Earth does not play around. I know everybody wants Dark Knight nerfed to the ground, but what I want to happen is the Yoshi P style of balancing, is what I call it, is just make the other tanks have way better engage skills. Maybe in Dawn Trail consider it? Just give other tanks the ability to group people up as well. I think, or just a really strong engage. Like, that's what's missing with the other tanks. I mean, they sort of have it, but just like a way to just dive into the enemy. Warrior's Primal Rend is super close. It's super close to what I consider to be a really good engage. But just something to keep up with Salted Earth. Okay, so my S tier when it comes to what I think is the most dangerous healer is Astrologian. It's really hard to explain what Astrologian can do. They have a move called Double Cast, which lets them cast a certain ability they just used again. For example, their gravity, which is like an 8,000 potency move, they can cast it again with double cast and do 16,000 potency pretty quickly. And if they have Macrocosmos up, that is 28,000 potency in total between the 2 gravities and a Macrocosmos. If you get absolutely dunked on by 3 Astrologians, you are gonna get shredded worse than a Dragoon. Astrologians might be even more dangerous than Dragoon. The only thing they have going for them is that they're squishy. Currently, there is a plague running around Frontline for the past 2 weeks. I would like to thank Twitter for freaking complaining and spreading that around. Is the 1 Dark Knight, 3 Astrologian comp. Back in the earlier days, it used to be 3 Dragoons and 1 Dark Knight, but now people figured out that Astrologian can get a lot of AoE damage out on a 30-second cooldown, which syncs up with Dark Knight's Salted Earth, which is on a 30-second cooldown. Astrologian's Limit Break also buffs damage. They have cards that can buff mitigation and damage. They have instant heals, unlike White Mage's Cure. Astrologian they have pretty okay single target damage thanks to Malefic and double cast. Astrologian's damage is, people sleep on it, like it might be a support role because of the cards and the limit break, but if you can get 3 of them together, or if they contribute to the AoE damage when like, you know, the entire group should be bursting, which by the way, bursting isn't just a light party thing. The entire group, you know, JP does this, by the way, where they put in countdowns for when the group should be bursting. Astrologian should be bursting with the group. It'll be a very, very dangerous contribution. The worst part about the 1 Dark Knight 3 Astrologian comp is the fact that the Astrologians can heal each other is absolutely crazy. Even in not a pre-made Astrologian, I've gotten max battle high in games, not in a pre-made as Astrologian. Like Macrocosmos, the AoE range is insane. Oh my goodness, it does not play around. I'm absolutely like, if you see a 1 Dark Knight 3 Astrologian comp, my best advice to you is to just absolutely focus them down. The Astrologians, like it'll take like 5 people to take one of them out. Okie dokie, now that I'm done yelling, I'm gonna talk about probably the best job for solo queuing. It is Ninja. This is at the very tippy top of A tier. My biggest complaint about Ninja is it is really, really good with its limit break, which instantly kills anybody whose HP is below 50%. It even breaks through guard. The fact that Ninja's AoE damage isn't that good. Ninja's really good at finishing people off, and it has some pretty decent single target damage too, especially with Battle High, but Ninja does not have the AoE danger, like the blender potential that the S tier jobs have here. Ninja can do everything else. Like, you need healing, Ninja's got you. You need to protect the point, Ninja can Doton the point. Ninja can shield itself with a really good shield. Ninja has a really good single target shuriken skills. Ninja is incredibly flexible, and it has the melee defense. In 6.51, they actually might consider nerfing Ninja's defense. They might consider nerfing some of these melee's defense stats. They still have, it will always, in my opinion, it always is going to have the melee privilege defense modifier on it. So it is really, really difficult to kill a Ninja unless if you have 5 people on it, just like with the Astrologians. They also have Shikuchi, which if you don't know what Shikuchi does, if you see a Ninja ever disappear and go away, that's the skill. Like, they can use Shikuchi to instantly get away from a dangerous encounter. And it makes them invisible for a while, so if they can get around a corner, they're really, really good. Like, a smart Ninja knows how to get away really easily. Okay, next on the A tier list is what I consider to be the second best tank, Warrior. So Warrior's limit break not only makes them immune to most status effects, but they can break guard, which is crazy to me. It is absolutely like, if you can, so I talked about how Dark Knight makes a Warrior immediately better, is the fact that usually what people try to do when a Dark Knight uses Salted Earth is that usually people who get sucked in use guard. But if you have a Warrior with you, the Warrior can just break guard on everybody, and you can just AoE burst them all down, and it is evil. Warrior has Bloda too, so you can snatch anybody with really good battle high towards your team and just punish them into the ground. Warrior's Primal Rend is good at interrupting. It's a pretty decent engage and is good at interrupting anybody who's trying to take the objective and say Sealed Rock on Saul. Its damage is As far as I'm aware, it's a pretty okay damage. When it limit breaks, it gets a pretty good, I think it's called Inner Chaos, or the AoE skill. They have a pretty good AoE skill when they use limit break. Bloodwetting, from what I'm aware, it would be good, but the freaking server lag screws Warrior over with that. Yeah, it's a really good tank. It's, from what I understand, it's amazing in Crystalline Conflict right now. Like, Warrior might actually get nerfed in 6.51 because of how good it is in Crystalline Conflict right now. But we will have to see. I still think it is incredibly threatening, even with the Bloda nerf, even with the, I think Primal Ren got nerfed too. But yeah, it is a really fun tank to have around in frontline matches. Okay, next on the A tier list, I originally had another healer at A tier, but I think I'm going to put this other one up on A tier. It is Scholar. Scholar is good at applying pressure with AoE poison. One thing people aren't aware is if a Scholar actually knows what they're doing, they can buff damage on these other dangerous AoE damage jobs. Like Dragoon, Scholar shield skill that is, can buff damage. So if you can land that on like a Dragoon who's about to limit break, it is so dangerous. Or a Scholar could buff themselves as they throw poison out. They can use Expedient, which is a decent mitigative tool to get people to run away. The biggest issue with Scholar is just the limit break. From what I understand, the limit break is not that useful in a huge arena like Frontline, and it's also super slow execution. You know, just like Scholar in PvE. The biggest thing Scholar has going for it is the poison pressure. If you have a max battle high Scholar, especially multiple of them, the poison becomes miserable. Oh my gosh. I remember before a Scholar got damage nerfed, the poison damage was literal misery. Like if you had 4 of them at max battle high, there were matches where I would see 4 of them at max battle high and just everybody's HP constantly dropping. And its AoE damage is good, but it's a lot not burst oriented like Astrologians. I consider it dangerous in the sense of why I consider Astrologian dangerous, but I have to knock it down from Astrologian. You're probably wondering why I'm putting Scholar above White Mage, and it's because White Mage has gotten a decent amount of nerfs too. White Mage's limit break does not have the pressure potential that Scholar's has. I mean, like, the Scholar's dot. When we're talking about AoE damage, all White Mage can really do is limit break for AoE damage. They do have Seraph Strike. I consider Scholar to be ever so slightly threatening thanks to that damage buff they can provide for other AoE damage oriented jobs. Okay, we're not done with the A tier list yet. I actually want to put in another job that people tend to, if you ignore, actually will mess up the entire party. Black Mage. So Black Mage is capable of doing AoE dot damage like Scholar, but when they apply, they have a move called Flare, which is an AoE fire damage, and it has a decent amount of potency on it. And when Black Mage has a limit break up, it can spam Flare and put multiple stacks of a fire debuff on the party. The more stacks of the fire debuff the party has, I should really pull up images for these. The more dot damage the party will take. Because of that, Black Mage has some really good AoE damage. The issue is that is incredibly delicate in Frontline. Like, if Black Mage makes the wrong misstep, they could get caught by a Warrior's Bloda, they could get stunned out of nowhere by a White Mage LB, by a Machinist Air Anchor, and then they are gonna get shredded like cheese. Like, it is absolute glass cannon, but if you have a Black Mage who knows what they're doing, a lot of these I'm trying to say on the assumption that the job knows what they're doing. Like everybody knows what they're doing in a frontline match is what I'm saying. Black Mage's AoE damage is there. If it really needs to, it can stun people with its ice moves as well, but usually you see Black Mages just spam fire because the dot damage is totally worth it. Black Mage isn't really burst damagey as much as Dragoon, but it's good at applying pressure like Scholar. It has a really good recast time on its limit break, and it has mitigation actually also when it has its limit break up. So it has a little bit of survivability. If you just have to be careful, like you have to stick with your team, you have to be just always on it, which you should always be on it, for example, if you're playing Black Mage in PvE anyway. Next job on the list is Samurai. Who's also I'm gonna put up on A tier. This job is an absolute menace, and everybody should know why. Let me get this image. I have an image actually of I need everybody to look at. It is called, so Samurai can use a buff called Kazushi, but I'm gonna show it on this video because I need everybody to see what it looks like. No, it's not Kazushi. So Samurai has a buff called Chi 10. If you have your enemy buff set to high, you really need to look at this. So whenever you're fighting a Samurai, you need to be on the lookout for this buff right here. I'll even try to zoom in if I can. Oh, I can't. But yeah, this blue buff right here, this is Chi 10, which if you hit a Samurai with Chi 10, they put a debuff on you called Kazushi. It is a purple debuff, and if you get limit breaks, if you get Zentetsuken by a Samurai, you are instantly dead, even through guard. Such a menacing instant I win button. It goes through guard. It makes Samurai such a menace. If it can survive an AoE situation, it's actually a really good contender for countering Dark Knight comps, because I've played Dark Knight 2 and gotten countered multiple times by a Samurai if they know what they're doing. If you follow Sabaton on Twitter, you know, the artist behind Our Unending Journey, they actually made Samurai and made a really fun point. Let me go find that tweet. Okay, I found it, y'all. So Sabaton tweeted, Astro Dark Frontlines combo getting you down? Go Samurai. I'm so serious. They always run up an extremely obvious little cluster and they're always clumped up for a nice and Tetsuken sides group. It's my favorite. So Samurai does have the melee privilege defense modifier. So you can survive a little bit of the Dark Knight Astro combination. Like, just pop Chi 10, pop guard, and you can just limit break them all down. If you execute it elegantly. Zentetsuken also has a ridiculous range. I think it's like 30 yalms. And I remember everybody, like including me, I get so mad when a Samurai manages to Chi 10 me or limit break me all the way from freaking the other side of the map. It has pretty good damage outside of Zentetsuken, but I think everybody just knows Samurai out of that. It also has an obnoxious amount of gap closers. I've seen Samurais be really good. I've seen most of the melees actually be really good at running away. You're going to see that most of the melees are pretty good in this frontline mode. At the very tippy top of B tier, I'm going to put freaking... God, wait, I have an image saved. Okay, I'm going to put Monk actually at the top of B tier. So Monk is ridiculously good for Crystalline Conflict. Most importantly, it's good here too. It takes a little bit to wind up its combo as usual. What we're really looking at here is the fact that Monk has so many knockbacks, which are good. Well, it used to be good and secure, but then they took down secure for very good reasons. Shatter. And a little bit of non-Sol in Seal Rock too. You can knock people off the edge, those two. The knockbacks on it, you can knock back enemies into your own team. You have pretty good defense thanks to Riddle of Earth and whatever that fire move is. I think the fire move heals them. You can break guard with your limit break. You can use a stun on people that can't even get purified. Monk is an absolute rudest FU job here. My issue with it is just Monk does not have AoE damage. Limit break is absolutely dangerous. Like, if it has decent uptime, you can use it to stop people with good battle high. Outside of that, it just doesn't make it as much of a threat as the other three melee here, so it has to go into B tier. Tank I'm gonna put on B tier is Gunbreaker. So Gunbreaker's in that kind of spot where it immediately becomes better when there's a Dark Knight. What you usually see Gunbreakers do in Frontline is they'll Beyblade around a group of people and then put their stacks of defense down, or whatever the heck it's called, on people, and use double down or whatever that move is. It's a AoE stun on everybody, and it does a pretty good amount of damage. The problem is the wind up, which if you have a Dark Knight and a Warrior also, it kind of mitigates the wind up issue, especially if people's guards are broken, they're all grouped up together. But I've seen some Gunbreakers do okay solo queuing. I don't really see Gunbreakers play the healer mimic or whatever it's called, but I see them play tank and DPS quite a bit. They have melee privilege also, so that's why they haven't not knocked them down to C tier, even D tier. When we compare it to all the other tanks, like Warrior and Dark Knight, I just don't feel as threatened by a Gunbreaker as I do with a Warrior and Dark Knight, so that's my reasoning for putting it in B tier. Okie dokie, so the healer I wanted to put in A tier, but I swapped it to B, is White Mage. So White Mage has gotten nerfed again and again and again and again. Like, if this was when PvP was brand new, White Mage actually might be higher than Astrologian. Mostly because people didn't really figure out how to do a bunch on Astrologian until a couple months later. White Mage is very simple. You limit break, giant AoE stun on everybody. You Seraph Strike, decent AoE damage, and Cure 3. Like, White Mage can provide some healing, but it just doesn't really provide the AoE damage that Astrologian can. And Scholar, it can't really apply pressure like Scholar can. Its Imp has gotten nerfed into the ground, but granted, the Imp move can't kill off people. Like, I've played White Mage in rival leagues. Oh my god, I'm getting my modes confused. I've seen some decent White Mage plays. Like, you can use the Imp move to stop Dark Knights, but it requires really good execution. They've nerfed the Imp move to the ground so many times that I just don't really consider White Mage that much of a threat anymore. Aqua Veil is really good. Like, White Mage can provide actual pure healing, defensive healing pretty well. The issue is that Cure 2 freaking sucks. Cure 2 sucks when you look at Astrologian's aspected benefit and the fact that it's instant cast and that you can cast it twice with double cast. I will give White Mage the fact that the limit break is okay AoE damage, but even the cooldown on that's gotten nerfed. So White Mage is still good. Like, I put it on B tier, but just once again, I'm trying to compare it to the other healers. I don't really feel as threatened by White Mages anymore. I still see them get battle high on games though. Like, all these jobs I've listed so far, I've seen them all in games with max battle high consistently. The problem is I just think some other jobs are better than it. Like, I'm trying to be stricter with the tier list here. Okay, the next job I'm going to put on B tier, just because I've seen it do really well in Shatter, is Red Mage. Red Mage's defense recently got buffed, which gave it a little bit more survivability, like just the bare minimum, barely enough. But Red Mage actually does pretty okay single target damage. Resolution is an obnoxious move that stuns you from super far away. And its limit break, if you're in the middle of that X limit break, it actually is dangerous damage. The problem Red Mage weighs down on is that I'm comparing it to Black Mage. It is still a caster, so it doesn't have the melee privilege defense quite yet. Red Mage's debuffs are pretty good. They're pretty fun. You just have to be careful. I've seen Red Mages also gap close to other people like Dragoon and Samurai do to run away. Red Mage does a little bit better for me than Summoner just because of the silences and the binds that it can provide. Like, Summoner can bind too, but Red Mage can also silence, which is absolutely evil, and people really sleep on it, the limit break damage. Like, even I sleep on the limit break damage. Like, I don't consider it to be like lethal. It's usually because I play melees, but Red Mages can actually engage the other ranged jobs pretty well. I actually have a Red Mage friend who literally will spend Shatter matches just hitting the killing people and not hitting the crystal, just because you don't get focused there. And it's maps like Shatter where you see Astrologian really shine and Red Mage shine because people will rather just hit the crystal than actually fight. Okay, the very tippy top of C tier, I'm gonna put Summoner. Summoner used to be really good until the damage nerfs. It's still alright now, but I just consider the other casters to be better. Summoner has a Aegis Shield, which is pretty good. I think you can even use it on other people in PvP, unlike PvE. Its Bahamut is pretty fun AoE damage. You can use Bahamut to actually save the point a lot in on Sol and in Seal Rock. I think Summoner's issue is just the fact that it doesn't have a defense modifier like Red Mage does, even though Summoner has a gap closer with the Ifrit move. I actually never really use Phoenix. I never see anybody use Phoenix, which is so silly. The problem with Summoner is once all of its moves are on cooldown, all it can really do is ruin 3. And I've run into that issue where I'm like, well, I'm out of everything. Time to ruin 3.
Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure Red Mage is pretty fine.
I consider Red Mage and Summoner to be super, super close. I just have to knock Summoner down to C tier just because I don't think Summoner's LB is as strong as Red Mage's Resolution, and also it just does not have the defense that Red Mage does. We're getting down to the point where I really don't consider a lot of these other jobs to be as threatening. Okay, next on the tier list, I'm going to put Machinist. So Machinist I used to consider very incredibly threatening until they nerfed the Chainsaw. So Chainsaw was supposed to have like a 1%, 3% chance of killing you. It felt a lot higher than that. And it could even break guard. But now it just does extra damage if you're under 50% HP. Which is it's still an execution move. Machinist doesn't really do, in my opinion, a lot of damage in Frontline. It like Red Mage, it is threatening to the ranged, but it doesn't have any engage like Red Mage does. No gap closers. You have to slide cast your attack moves on Machinist. You can defend the point on Seal Rock and in Frontline with the turret move. Machinist is not really that threatening outside of their LB. Their LB is good at finishing people off. It has a pretty good charge time on its limit break, 90 seconds. Tab targeting in 14 freaking sucks, so you would have to target somebody with low HP trying to run away and finish them off. Which I guess would be like, ha, funny. The issue is you are still a Machinist, so that's all you can really do. Meanwhile, we have these other more threatening jobs in the other higher tiers. Like, every time I see a Machinist in Frontline, I'm just like, oh, it's just a Machinist, just get him. You have to be really good at running away and just using, you don't have any skills to help you really run away either. Okay, next on the tier list is Reaper. So Reaper, I mean, I've seen some games with Reaper with max battle high. I think their hardest hitting move is like Kamunyo. Usually what I see Reapers do in Frontline is their little fart move that makes everybody run away, and also that other fart move they have that makes everybody heavy. The best part about Reaper, like the most impactful part I see anyway, is the fact that they can break guard. Which any job that can break guard is handy. I think Reaper's damage is even less impressive than Monk's. It has some good defensive capabilities thanks to that arcane circle and the fact that they can dash and run away, but they just feel annoying. They feel annoying, but not like menacing like Monk. So out of all the melees, I consider Reaper to be just the least threatening. At the end of the day, it still has melee privilege, so I guess if you have a Reaper who's trying to do the rotation in PvP, they will be contributing, but just the other melees just feel so much more impactful than Reaper. Like, the one thing that it has going for it is the melee privilege and the limit break. And also on C tier, I'm going to put Dancer. So Dancer's defense did get buffed along with Red Mage's, and its limit break is good at grouping people up, but Dancer cannot move well. It cannot move well when it's using limit break. I've seen its damage do okay. At the end of the day, it's still a ranged job. As you've noticed, I really am picky about putting ranged jobs up higher on the tier list because melees are incredibly strong right now. They are so strong in Frontline, and I know that casuals are queuing for Frontline, but they should really try checking out melee more because the melee jobs are really good right now. Dancer does have Dance Partner to heal, guess what? Other melees. And I don't think it provides a damage buff though. Dancer can provide some supporting buffs. It can use its little Beyblade moves to throw out some AoE damage. If you have a Dark Knight, Dancer becomes immediately better. Dancer, a limit break combined with Salted Earth is evil. Like, I've seen Dancers follow up Dark Knights, their limit break, and since it breaks guard and people can't move, you can just keep AoE bursting them down. Dancer would be good because of that. And I almost want to rank it higher than Machinist. Actually, I am gonna. I should have put Dancer up here. I'm sorry, I'm revising this a little bit. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna put Dancer up there because the limit break actually makes it really... Actually, I'll put it at the top of C tier. Like, the limit break is good, you just have to know how to use it, and unfortunately, you're probably gonna be sacrificing yourself when you're using the limit break because you yourself also cannot move that well. So you're basically praying to God that your team is gonna actually AoE burst. I really want to run a Frontline match one day with 4 Dancers in a pre-made. I just limit break over and over again. I think that would be so chaotic and fun. Okay, top of D tier, I'm going to put Paladin. You're probably like, unique. You put Paladin so low. While it does have a bunch of defensive benefits, it does not provide offensive benefits that the other tanks can provide. Like, I think Paladin's limit break can lower defense of the enemy, but it's not providing immediate benefits, if that makes sense, like the other tanks can. Like Gunbreaker's Beyblade lowers defense for everybody as well, and it does damage, really good damage. And Warrior's limit break breaks guard, which helps other jobs just go in. Like, that is such a strong, it's an AoE break guard move. And then Dark Knight can group everybody up, which is incredibly strong. What I see it do as an impact is cover people with battle high. Out of all the tanks, I think I see Paladins with battle high the least. It's super good in Crystalline Conflict, by the way. I want to say, like, a lot of these jobs in the lower tiers are good in Crystalline Conflict. Poor Paladin, like, I'm comparing it to the other tanks and I just do not feel threatened. I remember there's some frontline matches where I got chased by, like, me and a friend got chased by like 4 Paladins and we were fine because they could shield bash. That's pretty much it. We just ran away without getting absolutely murdered because they're just not threatening. Next on the list, I'm gonna put Sage. Sage is good in Crystalline Conflict and it's okay in Frontline. Like, its LB does dot damage on the point, but like Machinist too. But they're also delicate. They can put out some damage, but not Astrologian. Like, a Sage does do some AoE damage and has a decent gap closer, but Astrologian and Scholar and White Mage have way better AoE damage than Sage. Sage has Toxicon, which I don't even think has that big of an AoE. It doesn't even have good healing. Like, Cardia's healing is pretty sad, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's also not instant because it has a cast time because you have to cast doses for it to work. Like, I do not feel that threatened by a Sage in Frontline at all. And last, we are going to put poor Bard, who got nerfed. It might get buffed again, but I do not consider it is the least threatening job I have ever fought in Frontline. Also, Blue Mage is in the corner. So I do have Blue Mage sitting here just because this tier list had Blue Mage sitting around. Square Enix, you should have Blue Mage. Just saying, I think it would be really funny. But going back to Bard, it can help buff other people's limit breaks, but the problem is usually people are sitting on max limit break anyway because they're trying to sync it up together. You're already losing, so you already have buffed limit break speed anyway. Bard's damage is not as good as the other Fizz ranged. Its silence jump back move got nerfed really badly. Yeah, poor Bard. Maybe it'll get buffed in 6.51. We'll see. Anyway, that is the entire tier list. I'm sorry if I got really ranty with most of these jobs. Most of the jobs. I really did. This video is so long. I'm sorry. This is probably going to be the tier list for the rest of 6.0. I have very low expectations that 6.51 is actually going to change up the meta. We will see, but this actually might be the tier list for the rest of the expansion. So if you keep that in mind when you're like, what job should I play in Frontline? Well, this tier list will definitely be helpful for you. Let me know in the comment sections what you disagree with me on here, or if you agree with me. I might consider doing PvP Frontline highlights again, but I think I'm going to do them as shorts. Because I'm going to be honest with y'all, I loved making the Frontline highlights. Videos got less and less and less views as the series went on. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to end it. Simple as that. I think shorts would be really, really fun. Like, they're less time for me to edit, and they actually have better reach than my longer form content. God knows how this video is going to do. I need to cut it up. But yeah. All right. Bye, friends. See you in 6.51.